I'm like, just want to go into the episode, adjust the sound, export it again, and replace that.
That's your December fun thing you can do if you miss editing.
If I do not miss editing. That's the problem. Like, I get done at that, I'm like, now I gotta edit the next ones.
At least here's the thing, though. At least because we do it so constantly, the episodes, you kind of have to do it and move on, do it and move on. Because I feel if you were just on one episode, you would be stuck there forever. You're like, no, we'll have to tweak this again. That's how it is with my songs. I'll listen to it and I'm like, yep, that doesn't sound right. We shall fix that. And then I listen to it again and I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound right. I'm like, it just keeps getting worse. This is fantastic.
It's almost as bad as editing a novel. Well, I didn't put anything behind me yet today.
What's on your desk? Just grab something there.
A Statue of Liberty? I've got a Statue of Liberty.
Go for it. Go for it.
Why not? It's not 4th of July, but who cares?
Do you at least have something to drink?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, I do. Barely. Good. But I've got my Maker's Gonna Make cup again because I need it a lot.
Gosh, darn it. I'm going to start singing again if you keep on bringing that one up. So I have my ginger, lemon, and honey tea today.
I have water.
Wow. H2O. Alrighty, let's do this. Hello everyone and welcome to Tea and Tales. I'm Madeline Einal.
And I'm Sarah Sampson. Thank you all very much for listening to us and commenting on all of our social media posts. We especially want to thank Val Layton and May Radoon. Thank you very much for your support. Today is our Slap Me With a Wet Fish episode about favorite authors and books.
So, of course, we want to thank each and every person who has contributed to this episode. I will start with Liana Jansen van Rensburg. And so her favorite author is Sue Grafton. So she writes like murder mysteries and she has a whole series about the alphabet murders. So it's like A, B, C to E, F, G. But then she passed away before she wrote Z. That's just sad. But so it's murder mystery novels. I know I like my murder mystery novels. But the thing is, so it's hard for us as South Africans to know whether authors are as not famous in other countries as they are here. Though on the other hand, I feel if novels actually reach South Africa, then it means they must be actually big to be able to hit the shelves here. So I think all the novels that don't hit the shelves here, I consider not well known authors.
It's all in perspective, isn't it? I think if you pick a debut author or somebody who is self-published, you're probably safe for someone who isn't well known.
True. But well, I don't know. Do you know Sue Grafton?
Nope.
Well, you didn't really read other stuff than
I don't read other genres, so I don't know.
Yeah, you're the worst person to ask this question.
Yeah, because there's some authors like Stephen King. Everybody knows Stephen King, even if you don't read his genre, right? But then there's other authors that if you read the genre, you definitely know their name.
Yeah. Well, so every time that I get like a gift card to a bookstore or something like that, and I go and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want this author's like novel, and then I get there and it's not there, and I'm just like, why? I'm like, apparently they are a bestseller on New York's list, so why aren't they in my bookstore? That's a bit rude.
The ABC one, I hadn't heard about it until she told us about it. Okay, so the next one, A.K. McBride, she said Jody K. Small Town or Jasmine Miller, who writes a sports series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Jasmine Miller is more like your typical, I would say, indie author, very spicy type of writer. Mm-hmm. You will definitely, there's definitely a type of writing when you look at a cover of a novel. And she definitely has one of those, shirtless men type of vibes on her covers. And you're like, yep, this is going to be spicy. Can totally see that. So I always love, especially for romance, once you see a novel, you definitely know what type of spice it's going to be. She definitely recommends both of these authors because, well, both of them kind of write in a similar genre she does, because she did start out doing small town and then she evolved into billionaires. So if you like small town series, definitely go check out Jodie Hay. And if you like your sexy hot men who play sports, then definitely go check out Jasmine Miller. So Rose Lawrence, she has two authors. The one is Sayaka Murata. The one novel that she talks about is Convenience Store Woman. Rose said she likes the way that Sayaka uses her POV. And so I think that is an interesting book to want to read if you're struggling with your POVs or don't know how to write them or how to interpret them and stuff like that. And I think you know this one. Daniel Keyes, Flowers of Algernon. Is that the title?
Flowers for Algernon. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I just said. That's what I just said. It's like the ones that, oh my gosh, I have to tell you this. And I'm pretty sure a majority of people have felt these feelings before. So when I read a novel, naturally my Afrikaans brain reads it the way that it is written. Okay, so you know the Divergent series. My sweet little brain that I have, I was like, yes, Divergent, Insurgent. And the third one is Allegiant. So it's Allegiant. You know what I read? Allegiant. I was like, yep, that's reads about right.
Now I want to write a story about Allegiants.
And the other one that got me very bigly, that's not a word, what? The other one that got to me as well is I was sitting in my theatre, what was it, like script analysis class or something like that, and we were doing a play. There was this play that we had to read, and it's called Antigone.
Okay.
You want to know how I read that little one? Antigone.
I'm scared. Okay.
Yep, yes. I was like, that's where my spatial brain went with those things. So, yes, Flowers for what now?
Yeah, Flowers for Algernon is one of those books that I was already grown and off at college and things like that. And then I came home one day and my littlest sister and my mom were just raging about this book. So, of course, I had to read it because books. But also, that's the sister that grew up to get her master's degree in library sciences. So, if she says a book is good, I pretty much go, she knows what she's talking about. It's a short story.
Okay.
It talks about, is ignorance bliss? That's kind of the whole theme, the question that it asks. Would you rather know the information or not know the information? Which one's better for you? It's very psychological.
See, that's why I read romance novels, because I don't like to get intellectually psychology. What is the meaning behind? That's why I don't do poetry, because I'm like, just tell me what you want to tell me. Tell me what you want, what you really want. No, don't. Yeah,
I feel like that's the problem I have now with my beta readers is I write very philosophically and poetically. I have a very poetic literary voice in fantasy, and it puts an interesting spin on it. And so people either really, really love it or they're like, I don't understand. I'm like, oh, goodness.
Sorry, I'm so good at words.
I apologize. I don't know. But it's funny because I have some people who have read it who hate reading anything, and will be like, oh, I love this so much. And then people who are like, I'm an author and I'm this and I'm that. And they're like, I don't like it. So I'm like, it's very strange. It's a very strange mix of people who like my writing, but we'll see how it goes if I get published.
There you go. There you go. Either you like it or you hate it. It's one of those things.
Yeah. Now we're way off topic. Sorry about that.
No, that's how we roll over here at Tea and Tales.
All right. Justine Brashear says she likes Anne Rice because of her writing style. Oh, she resonates with Elizabeth Gilbert, so she likes reading those ones. And Taylor Jenkins Reid.
I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I must say that's the first novel I read of Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it shall be the last novel I read of Taylor Jenkins Reid because she made me feel too many feelings. I don't like that. So, but it was so good. And it's so funny because you should be so very proud of me, Sarah. I actually convinced a friend of mine. Now, did I really convince her? No, I just kept on talking about reading all the time. And then she got annoyed with me. And she was like, okay, fine, just give me a book to read. And I was like, challenge accepted. I shall give you a book. So I gave her a book and she finished it in like 3 days. I was like, okay. And so then she read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo in 2 days. And I was just like, you're welcome. You're welcome. But it's such a good book. Oh, so good. I will recommend it to anyone.
And Dolly Alderton, who writes Ghosts. Yeah, I remember her talking about that one. You guys went crazy about this book, Ghosts, by Dolly Alderton.
Alrighty, so then we have Kendra Cook, and she mentioned Kate Morton, who's an Australian author, and she writes literary fiction. And she enjoys her writing because she says they flip back and forth in time, so you get to kind of know your characters through those periods that they flip in between. So I don't think I've ever read a novel from an Australian author, though, if I have to think about it.
I don't think so either. Not that I'm fully aware of.
The problem I have, though, is like I read a lot of Mills and Boon, so I will never know if an author of Mills and Boon was Australian or not.
Yeah.
Like elements of surprise. I think generally the authors I lean towards are mostly like American, and then sometimes British, like Holly Jackson. She wrote the trilogy A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I had to think about that one. That was pretty good. That was made it into a series. Yes. So
I think I've heard of that. I've never read it, but
yeah, it's like young adult mystery.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's interesting to say that, though, because when we were visiting in Sweden with my cousin in Sweden, she would always say she didn't like reading books in Swedish, so she would always find them in English. And so she read a lot of authors from England because she would seek out those English books, which was interesting, and maybe, her preference. But it makes me wonder, what kind of style, because the styles are different from England to Australia to the United States.
Very true. Well, I do find it fun. When I was living in the Netherlands, I traveled to Italy and Sweden and Germany and Belgium and Spain and all those places. And naturally, I would go into a bookstore because why not? And I always found it so funny because I like Abby Jimenez. And I was in Italy and I walked into a bookstore and I saw her name and I was like, oh, Abby Jimenez. And it was all in Italian. And I was like, interesting. Because to me, I would never want someone to translate Abby Jimenez's book into Afrikaans. I cannot for the life of me read an Afrikaans romance novel because it sounds so super creepy. So when you say in English, like, he caressed her face and his hand moved down her spine, I'm like, ooh, enticing. I like that. Say that in Afrikaans and I'm like, dude, you prison. What are you doing? No, thank you, sir.
Is it just the way the words translate?
Yes, yes. Oh. No, I'm just like, I can't even. But we do have authors like, for example, Dion Meyer. And he is also known internationally because his books has been translated into English, but he does write Afrikaans. And when I read his novels, I'm like, okay, I can read this. Like, this is fine. But he's also more like murder mysteries type of vibes. So I'm like, yeah, it's very like clinical. It's very organized. I can vibe with that. Whereas, yeah, romance, not so much. I'm like, no, thank you. Right.
Maybe that's the challenge for you, is to write one in Afrikaans that is actually like, beautiful.
Wish you. I'm just going to cringe while writing it.
Do I have far too much faith?
Way too much. Imagine I have to take one of my novels and translate them into Afrikaans. That would be hilarious. Though I feel the phrases that I use would make a lot more sense. Like, slap me with a wet fish. If I translate that into Afrikaans, people would be like, ha 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 ha. So, yeah.
Then it would be interesting to see how it translates into English, and if we're like, whoa, that's weird.
Don't know how I feel about that.
I'm not sure. All right. Claire Draycott says she likes to read Ian Pierce, An Instant of the Finger Post.
Yeah, she said that's a good novel. She says it's very similar to like Agatha Christie vibes.
Oh, okay. An Instant of the Finger Post. That just sounds so interesting. Just, that's not a title that I would be thinking was amazing. But
not at all, because my romantic brain would immediately think dirty things. So no.
Gotta put it in context of the genre. Is that what you're saying? Hmm.
1000%. Yep.
And she also says Sophia Mosley's short stories. I love short
Yeah.
stories. But the problem with short stories is if it's a really, really good short story, then I'm like, okay, where's the rest? Like, I want more of this.
More. Give me more.
And sometimes it's nice just to have something short to read and then move on. But sometimes I get so sucked in.
That's why I like my Mills and Boone, because they're short and sweet. We started this podcast to uplift, authors and indie published authors and self-publishing authors. I think I will go
Mhm.
back to my, roots, and I'll just emphasize some South African authors that I recently
Mm.
discovered. So one of them whom I absolutely love is Sally Andrew. So she writes cozy mysteries, and she has a series called Tani Maria's Mystery, and she
Mhm.
has 4 books in the series. And basically, the story takes place in the Karoo around Ladysmith. So it's kind of the south part of South Africa. And
Mhm.
it's about this, I would say, lady in her early 50s, I think. And she loves baking. So she goes to work at a newspaper company. She gives them recipes for food. So throughout the novel, she talks about different food that she makes. So she would make a Venus cake, or she would make rusks, or she would make a potjie, or whatever. And then at the end of the novel, she has all the recipes of it, which is so
Nice.
cool. I absolutely love it. Mm-hmm.
I love a good appendix on a novel.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when you have a great, like, give me that content at the end, how to pronunciate the names, all the little interesting tidbits. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And naturally, she does have a little, romantic arc in it. So naturally, I'm
Mm.
inclined to love it. So yes, Sally Andrew, definitely will recommend her as an author to read her novels. I'm a romance author, so I feel I should,
Mhm.
hype up my romance author South Africans here. So Dominique Wolf is an indie romance writer from South Africa. She actually, for the first time, her novels have been published in our bookstores, which is quite big for indie authors in South Africa. So that is
Yeah.
quite an accomplishment. But she writes romance novels. And then Parini Flotman is also a romance novel, and she has a Christmas romance novel coming out in December, which is super fun. So,
Ooh.
yeah, so those are authors I would recommend for people to read. First off, to read authors from a different country, and second of all, because there are different genres. It's like romance and cozy mystery, and then Dion Meyer writes crime type of novels as well.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So I've thought of two. So the first one is a writer named Michael J. Manning, and the book one in his series is The Blacksmith's Son. He's a fantasy writer. I'm a super, super picky reader. We've talked about this before. And
Yep.
so I get to a certain point in his series and I get a little annoyed with the plot line there at the end books.
Okay.
But I still had to finish the series because I was too invested. By the time I got to book 4, I had to finish it. But the reason why I tell people to read his books, especially people who are writing omniscience, because he writes omniscience in the
Mm.
most amazing way that it works super well. The problem with omniscient POV is that it's hard to read, it can be disconnecting, it can be
Impersonal.
very impersonal, it can be vaulted, it can have all kinds of issues. So to have a new writer who writes omniscience in a way that I feel close and connected and not confused,
That's amazing.
it's just brilliant. And I know there are a lot of fantasy writers out there who are trying to bring back that omniscience POV. And so if you're trying to do that, Michael G. Manning, read his books as like a study guide for how to do it right. The
Okay.
other person is a self-published author who I just found actually over Facebook, and his name is Bill McCurry. So he has his debut novels out. He's self-published, and I'm enjoying it. The
Ooh.
voice of the book is really good. Again, it's another fantasy because I read fantasy. Sorry,
No,
guys.
honestly, Sarah, we have to fix this, honestly.
But I'm enjoying this book. I'm still in the first one because I read super slow, but I'm enjoying his
Okay.
storyline and his characters. So there's a good one for you.
There's nothing as good as reading a novel and it feels like you're not reading.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling ever. Or you're reading a novel and in the end you're like, wait, what just happened? I was just reading this. How is it already the end? Yeah. And there are so many authors and so many novels that one can recommend to people. And I think that's what's so great about the book community or the Bookstagram or Book Talk or whatever you want to call it. Because I have a rule. So if I see a novel more than 15 times across my feed, then I feel I have to read it. Which is what happened with the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I was like, fine, goodness gracious, stop going on my feed. I'll read you. Sheesh. It has been such a great community that has been built for these authors that are not as known. And so, yes, these are only a few of the many books or many authors that you can go check out before me or Sarah's novels come out.
We want to keep things short here on Tea and Tales, so get your fingers back on that keyboard and your pen back on paper.
And if you like what we're doing here and you want to share more authors or novels that you feel we should be reading or other people should be looking out for, go and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Tea and Tales Podcast, and on Twitter/X and TikTok at Podcast Details. And go to that lovely purple icon on your device and go give us 5 stars so that we can go up to the top.
Thank you for joining us. Happy writing.
Bye!